Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I accept your nomination. You're very kind, and thank you for greeting me this way. I so much wanted to be here this morning that not even the traffic of New York City could stop me. I walked the last several blocks, and I'm proud to do it and proud to be here. We are here for a very special reason, and I can't tell you how much I find the passion and commitment and enthusiasm in this crowd contagious. We're here in the cause of freedom, which is America's cause, but honestly, it is God's cause. Every person deserves freedom because every person was created by God. And this regime in Tehran, which claims to be acting in the name of God, how could a regime that acted in the name of God take God's children and put them in the Evin prison and torture them and murder them? How could a regime that believed in God suppress the human rights of its own people, women, journalists, etc., political opposition? How could a regime that believed in God really sponsor terrorism and aggression across its neighbors and repeatedly threaten to the United States of America that it wanted to bring death to our people? No, my friends, that is not a religious regime. That reminds me of something two of America's great founders, Franklin and Jefferson, said, that resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Remember that. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. And that's why we're here. We're here in the cause of freedom, right? And it's a universal cause, an American cause, and in this case, the cause of the people of Iran. We're here to celebrate a victory of freedom for the long-suffering residents of Camp Liberty, a miraculous victory of freedom. We're here to carry on the fight for freedom now to all the people of Iran held hostage by this tyrannical regime. And we are here in this week of the United Nations General Assembly when the world's powers, heads of state, foreign ministers come here to speak our truth to these powers and to say to them, please look at the record. Don't treat Rouhani as if he deserved the respect of a recognized leader of a civilized country like President Obama. Rouhani should be treated as the United Nations would treat the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, if he came here today. They are
Terrorist Rouhani out of UN now, now, now. Terrorist Rouhani out of UN now, now, now.
Right.
Terrorist Rouhani out of UN now, now, now.
Right. And look at the record. Iran under this regime, North Korea under Kim Jong-un, both brutal totalitarian regimes, both spending much too much money building weapons to threaten their neighbors. The fact is that the regime in Tehran has more blood on its hands than even the regime in Pyongyang. So we say to the United Nations, don't be fooled by Rouhani's smile. And anyway, he's simply a puppet for Khamenei and the IRGC. It's time, my friends, for a change. It's time for a change.
Freedom! Regime change in Iran! Democracy, freedom! Regime change in Iran! Democracy, freedom! Regime change in Iran! Democracy, freedom! Regime change in Iran!
This is never easy. It's never easy to take on power that suppresses. But we're on the right side, and we're on the right side of history, and we have reason today to be optimistic. I want to cite first what did happen at Camp Liberty. The United States made a promise to protect the people at Camp Liberty, and Iraq, under the increasing influence of Iran, pushed and broke that promise. For too long, too many people at Camp Liberty and Ashraf before it were killed or wounded, lived in fear, but thanks to the work of the MEK, the PMOI, and supported in this case, I'm proud to say, that by the United States Department of State, notwithstanding the increasing influence of Iran over Iraq, all the residents of Camp Liberty are now free. Thank God. So,
Free, free Iran! 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 Free, free Iran!
So, they said it couldn't be done in Camp Liberty. But you and we all together did it. They say that the smart analyzers, that we can't bring freedom back to Iran. But you and I don't accept that, do we? Because we understand our cause, and we understand the nature of this regime. We're now, as was mentioned, I'm proud to be the chairman of a group called United Against Nuclear Iran. This is more than a year after the Iran nuclear agreement was signed by the P5+1 plus the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's almost 9 months into the implementation of the agreement. Remember that people in the United States government and all the governments of the P5+1 said this agreement would moderate the government in Iran, would change its behavior, would bring it to be a member of the civilized community of nations. But what's happened in the last year? Look at the record. There's absolutely no change in the behavior of the regime. And has not changed the behavior, civilized, moderated the behavior of the regime in Iran. If anything, it is acting worse, and it will continue to do so.
What do we want? Regime change in Iran! 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 What do we want? Regime change in Iran!
Now, they're going to think that you and I rehearsed that. Because here's what I wanted to say next. Based on the total absence of change, in fact, worse behavior, more threatening, more and more repeated threats to the United States and all of the civilized people of the world, I think we've got to conclude that this regime in Tehran will not change, and therefore the only way to change the regime in Tehran is for the people of Iran to rise up and oust the regime that suppresses them and threatens most of the rest of the world.
Democracy, freedom, regime change in Iran. Democracy, freedom, regime change in Iran. Democracy, freedom, democracy change in Iran. Democracy, freedom, regime change in Iran.
We must together send that message to the regime, but more to the courageous people in Iran who suffer under its brutal grip. And they must believe that if they have the courage to rise up against this regime in the cause of freedom, following in the path of freedom fighters before them, that unlike courageous protests after the elections in June of 2009, this time, beginning with the United States of America, we will stand with the people of Iran. We will work with the people of Iran. We will support the people of Iran until the people of Iran are truly free.
No! Rajavi! Yes! Rouhani! No! Rajavi! Yes!
Amen.
Rouhani! No!
Amen.
Rajavi! Yes!
As much as you and I believe in our cause, I know that there are people who will tell us we are foolish ideas. Those who fought for freedom, civil rights, human rights, women's rights, gay rights, etc., including Martin Luther King. And Dr. King said at a dark and depressing hour in the civil rights movement, he reminded his followers, the moral arc of the universe bends slowly, but it always bends toward justice and freedom. Remember that.
Democracy, freedom, with Maryam Rajavi. Democracy, freedom, with Maryam Rajavi. Democracy, freedom, with Maryam Rajavi. Democracy, freedom, with Maryam Rajavi.
And let me go back a little further to the American Revolution, because your cause is the quintessentially, perfectly American cause, consistent with the ideals in our Declaration of Independence. Thomas Paine, one of the great courageous leaders of the American Revolution, said to his fellow revolutionaries when they began to rise up against the British who controlled them then, and Britain was the great superpower of the age. People looked at them as if they were foolish dreamers. And Paine said, we have it in our power to begin the world over again and against all odds. They did. They began the world over again. They created a government to secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They won the American Revolution, just as I am confident the people of Iran can win what I would call the second and true Iranian Revolution, for freedom, for justice, and for peace.
Freedom, regime change in Iran. Democracy, 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 freedom, regime change in Iran.
Hear, hear. Later, bring it. Free Syria is right. Look at the who is the major cause next to Assad of 500,000 deaths in Syria, of millions of refugees outside and inside. It's Syria. Excuse me, it's Iran. It's the IRGC. Let me go back to what Thomas Paine said. Much later, President Reagan recalled the words of Paine when he said, to begin the world anew, we must vanquish an evil empire. He was speaking of the Soviet Union. Today, that evil empire is based in Tehran with the regime there. It exists in total, and I want to end with this, in total opposition and contradiction to the United Nations Charter. That's where we are today. What did the Charter entered into in June of 1945 after World War II say? It said that the purpose of the United Nations was to take steps to remove threats to peace and suppress acts of aggression such as Iran has been involved in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, etc., Iraq, to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, to encourage respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, without regard to race, sex, religion, language. Ladies and gentlemen, this regime under Khamenei, the IRGC, Rouhani, has violated all of those principles of the United Nations Charter. It is why Rouhani should not be greeted as an honored guest, but as an international pariah, as a violator of the principles of the United Nations. It is why it is so important you are here today, and why I say to you, based on what happened at Camp Liberty, based on the history that I have tried to give you here this morning of those who have fought for freedom before you in causes that people thought could never succeed but did succeed, that we in our time, with the help of God and all of us pulling together, will live to see freedom and justice and the end of this regime in Iran. May it happen speedily in our days. God bless you. Go forward. I will be with you every step of the way.
Freedom. Democracy, freedom. With Maryam Rajavi.